Got a hand for us, Doug?
Yeah, so this past Thursday, I was at MGM National Harbor playing 510, and I encountered a unique situation in a hand I wanted to run past you.
Okay, so 510, no limit.
So we're seven-handed. They have plexiglass there. We're 1900 effective.
Okay, 1900 effective. Okay, yep.
In this specific hand, I'm in the big blind. Action folds around to the button, and when action has folded around to the button and I'm in the big blind and there's no action in front of the button is raised 100% of the time, which he does here. He bumps it up from 10 to 35, standard raise size. Small blind folds. I look down and I have red aces. So knowing how wide this player is, I make a small 3-bet and I bump it up to 100.
Okay. 3 bets to 100. So talk about this for a little bit. And again, this might be a live exploit in the sense with specifically with aces. I mean, in general, at this stack depth, you would want to go larger from out of position. However, when I'm dealing with what I deem to be a very weak player, so if I'm usually playing against the $5 at the $5 blind level, I'm not talking about Texas $5 blind, but like an LA 5-5 game or something like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I actually raise smaller to keep them in because I feel like maybe a little bit of lost value pre-flop from not making it larger will actually compound post-flop when they hit top pair and never be able to fold. Specifically with aces, sometimes I will exploitably size down. So I don't hate it. And, if he's opening 100%, he shouldn't be defending, anywhere near that amount, right? I mean, it's, you're making it 3x. I mean, maybe he defends with, it's hard to quantify because you look at this and it's like, in a normal situation, if you were opening a certain position, say with 20% of your hand, say it got folded to like low jack or something, and then somebody 3-bet, maybe you defend to a 3x 3-bet with like 30 or 40% of your opening range, which would really only represent 8 or 9% of hands. If he does that, he's still going to be super wide because he's going to have 40% of total hands if you're saying he's 100% VPIP. Just for a little bit of contextual background. So he calls on the button?
Yeah, so he calls. Flop comes king of spades, king of clubs, and 7 of hearts.
King of spades, king of clubs, 7 of hearts. By the way, what's kind of interesting here is that even if you were looking at optimal pre-flop solutions and defends, I bet king jack off plus is defended here from the button. So some people might look at, we block ace king, he's not calling with king queen off. Well, actually, that's not the case in a late versus big blind scenario. Now, if you were like, if there was a UTG opener and then there was a flat call and then you 3-bet from the big blind, I wouldn't expect, he's not supposed to have king queen off, right? His king X is going to consist of ace king off and king queen suited, king jack suited, but here he could. So he actually has some kings here too. So what did you do here?
Yeah, so I took a passive approach knowing how aggressive he was. I checked. He bets 75, which is a relatively small bet compared to the size of the pot. And then I call.
So button bets 75, hero calls, and the pot was 200 on the flop. Why did you check, just out of curiosity?
I guess I didn't want him to fold junk. I guess that was the primary reason. If he was defending with, I don't know, queen jack or ace 5 and I just bet out at him, he would fold instantly. I was trying to play at him in his aggression, and I wanted him to kind of be the aggressor, considering I felt I still had a good hand.
So ideally, you would have liked to have this have gone check, check, and then maybe he catches up to something on the turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or he's just a blindless bluffer or something. He could just bluff at it with nothing, basically. What's interesting here, and again, it doesn't sound like this guy is at this level, but how often is the big blind going to 3-bet a button open and then check fold on this flop? I mean, it can't be that often, right? Because, I mean, even with ace highs, like ace 10, ace jack, I just don't see folding here any pair, right?
Yeah.
The suited broadways, you've got a rainbow board, so the suited broadways are going to have, most of them are going to have, say, 3 to a straight, 3 to a flush. I mean, you could have, the one that doesn't, but you would still think that you'd start a bet, though, as the 3-better on this board, even if you had, say, for example, Jack 10 of diamonds here. So it's interesting that people would stab here, because I just don't see the big blind check folding all that much, as you probably should not. But anyways, okay, so you check call 75. All right, let's move to the turn.
Yeah, so the turn comes the 7 of diamonds, so 2 kings, 2 sevens out there, and then I continue with my passive play. I check to him, and then he bets out 250, and I end up tanking a little bit, but then making the call.
So he bets 250 into 350, total rainbow board, king, 7, 7. That's a really odd sizing. The reason why that's odd sizing is just because, if he was betting a 7 on the flop, which is possible, is he really going to bomb 250 now? Like, if you have a 7, it's really an in-between type of hand, right? What is there really to protect against here, unless you're slow playing king? And then I tend to find it unlikely that he would be taking this sizing here with top full house. So, I mean, I definitely think that you've got the best hand here a fair, amount of the time. It's interesting at the end on rivers. And then the other thing, though, too, is like, you're like, well, what hands at the end are going to play on this board that might just check back, pairs of like 8s through queens if those aren't 4-bet off. But is he still taking the sizing on the turn? I mean, and then is he trying to bet you off at ace high? I mean, it's probably going to go check a fair amount, but because you've played the hand this way, which I don't think is bad by any means, I think you're probably just going to be forced to go check call. But okay, so you call, right? Button bets 250, you call.
Yep.
All right, so now it's 850.
So river comes the king of clubs. So there are 3 kings out there and 2 sevens. Still a rainbow board.
What was it? King of
full house.
It's king of
clubs. Or I'm sorry, not clubs. King of hearts.
King of hearts. Okay, so the final board, again for the podcast people, you 3-bet out of the big blind against a button open, kind of small. He calls. The board comes out king, 7 rainbow. You check call 75. Pot's 350. Turn is a 7, so it's king, 7, 7. You check call 250, which I think is an odd sizing. So the pot's 850. And now the river is the king of hearts. By the way, I see some people in live chat saying I just fold on the turn. How can you fold the turn? How can you fold the turn? I don't know if that ever thought crossed your mind, but it's never a fold on the turn.
I didn't really consider it. I thought maybe I'm beat, but I also am not really representing my actual hand that well. He may be blasting away with 8s, 9s, 10s, something in that range.
Right.
So, I didn't really strongly consider it.
So let's look at this board. I like this hand because it's kind of interesting, too, in the sense that, again, yes. So what are the hands that beat you here? 4 sevens, right? It's just quads, right? Quad kings or quad sevens, right? Because your hand's going to play kings full aces. So the only hands that beat you here are 4 sevens and 4 kings. And again, I will go back to the same thing where I would say on the turn, I just, someone's going to be betting like that with 4 sevens or kings full as top full house on the turn. I mean, I guess it's possible. What's interesting here now is that he might just check it back because the board plays. So even though it's kind of strange, I wonder if we can develop a leading range here. And again, the theory would be, well, because you beat a 7 now, too, right? A single 7 for a full house, which you didn't beat. So, it's like one of these things where because if you check, he's just going to play the board and he might think, well, I don't need to bluff at it. Maybe I'll just chop here with ace high. But if you bet, he might call. Like if you were to bet 200 or 250 or something like that, you know what I mean? To like play the board. It's kind of an interesting spot because the board plays. I was going to say like 99 out of 100 times you're going to check call at the end on the river the way you played this one out. But now with the king coming at the end and the fact that we don't think he has really that many kings the way that he's played this hand, it's kind of interesting. What did you do?
Yeah, so, I mean, that was a big reason for my call is I didn't really know how to play this situation here. I feel like I misrepresented my hand. I think he thinks I'm weaker than I actually am. So do I quit playing passive and just bet out into him, or do I actually just check and let him do the work?
I tend to want to bet here. And here's the thing too, and the thing is that I know it sounds crazy, but you're somewhat protected by the fact that, then people are like, well, what if he jams? What if he jams? I think you're somewhat protected by the fact that this is similar to like a 4-flush board. And what I mean by a 4-flush board that's not paired. So you're not going to see crazy multiple bets like as bluffs on a 4-flush board that's not paired, because anyone can have the ace, right? It's totally feasible.
Correct.
There's so many nut combos here. There's not quite as many, but anybody can have a king. So if you lead out here, I just think that the bluffing frequency goes way, way down. Like, I just don't think you're getting bluffed by a non-king here all that much.
Yeah.
So it's just like if you lead out on a 4-flush board, you're not going to get bluffed, not by the ace of spades, and definitely not for a jam all in. So I think you're somewhat protected by that. And again, I still think maybe people are saying jam, jam, jam. I don't know if I'm jamming here, because the guy there's 1,400 left, right? I mean, there's maybe 1,500 left. If you jam, I don't know if he's going to call to play the board. And I don't know if he's taking sizing with queens through eights here on the turn. So that's why I actually might like a bet of like 250 to 300 to get called to play the board here too.
It kind of looks like a blocker bet. Pairs that are higher than sevens would probably call that off as well.
Yeah. What did you do?
So I continued with my passive approach. I checked to him, and he bet out 650, which was a pretty sizable bet, which kind of I didn't necessarily like. And then it came to another tough decision. Do I flat? Can I possibly fold, thinking he has?
No, you can never fold. No, you can never fold. I just don't think so. Because again, he might even think that. It's unlikely that he thinks he's value betting, or he thinks you're getting off of a chop, but I'm never, ever folding when I only lose to 2 combos of quads. I think it's probably pretty extreme where you probably shouldn't raise here, because if you check raise the end, the guy's got to be a real drooler to be able to call with worse. Although going back to old Zebo theorem, which is an old theorem back from like the mid 2000s, which is nobody ever folds a full house. And I'm not talking about a full house on board, but if you were to have like tens or jacks here, if it wasn't for the turn sizing, it wouldn't be such a spot where, I could maybe sometimes get on board with doing something like that, because, if it went turn check check or something like that. But when he bets 250, it's just really weird. I just don't know if he's doing that with any 8s, 9s, 10. I just call and expect to be good here like a lot. Once in a while, you're going to lose to a king, but I'm not sure if I'm going to raise here.
Yeah, so I end up making the crying call here, just flicking in the chips, and he flips over 2 diamonds. So he had the 6 of diamonds, and he also had the king of diamonds.
King 6 of diamonds for quads. Yeah, like I said, I think you're going to lose some of the time, but you're never, ever thinking about folding the way that this has been played out. That turn sizing is kind of interesting. If he thinks, newer school poker, like if somebody thinks that someone's going to defend the turn with ace high, then I guess they could size up. I think that the river is a clear call. I think what you do is very, very interesting though too, because if you bet like 300 to 400 and then he jams on you, are you going to be able? What are you going to do? In that spot.
Yeah, it's tough. It was a hard situation, and I think even my small 3-bet sizing up front kind of enabled him to get himself into this position. I raised 125, 150 pre, probably fold king 6, and I would have not lost $1,000 here.
Yeah, by the way, too, some people are like, oh, he defends to king 6 suited. Again, if I know off the top of my head from doing top section years ago that like king jack off to a small 3-bet button versus big blind heads up as a defend, I would probably think that king 6 of diamonds is pretty close. It might be king 7 suited
Yeah.
plus as a defend tier to 3x. Definitely defending it in the ante game. It's actually not as crazy as people in the live chat are thinking. But I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this call-in hand, hit the like button down below. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.